To delve into one of your signature promises on the campaign trail, which was to end inflation, to lower prices. You are now proposing tariffs against the United States' three biggest trading partners. Economists of all stripes say that ultimately consumers pay the price of tariffs.
I don't believe
Can
it.
you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow. But I can say that if you look at just pre-COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And I had a lot of tariffs on a lot of different countries, but in particular China. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars, and we had no inflation. In fact, when I handed it over, they didn't have inflation for a year and a half. They went almost 2 years just based on what I had created. And then they created inflation with energy and with spending too much. So I think I'm a big believer in tariffs. I think tariffs are the most beautiful word. I think they're beautiful. It's going to make us rich.
Why do some say tariffs hurt customers while others call them a brilliant negotiating tool? The truth lies in understanding trade-offs, which is a concept that shapes not just economics, but every business decision. In this video, we're going to talk about Trump's tariffs. We're going to talk about economics, and we're going to talk a little bit about politics. But ultimately, we're going to talk about business decision-making, business problem-solving around the framework of trade-offs. Stay tuned. Imagine a world where everything is in abundance. There's no lines, no shortages, no costs. Now, this was the case in the Garden of Eden, which was a system of production and distribution that God created, but it was not an economy. Economics only begins when resources are scarce and must serve multiple purposes. Now, in the book, Basic Economics, A Common Sense Guide to the Economy by Thomas Sowell, he highlights in the very first chapter this British economist named Lionel Robbins, who was distinguished in economics, who defined economics as the study of the use of scarce resources with alternative uses. Now, Thomas Sowell, in his book, he expands on this by explaining that trade-offs are the essence of decision making. Every choice has a cost, but resources used for one purpose cannot be used for another. Trade-offs. Now, in the world of business, trade-offs are very common. Not everybody sees it, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now, whether it's a big business, small business, medium-sized business, solopreneurship, IPOs, businesses in banking, businesses in supply chain, logistics, business in IT and technology, all face this concept of trade-offs. Now, whether we should focus on quality or speed, should we grow horizontally or vertically in terms of leadership? Should we focus on cutting costs or innovating? Should we start a new product or service, or should we add new features? These are all trade-offs. Now, the thing about trade-offs is not looking at trade-offs or business decisions as right or wrong, but looking at the trade-offs. If we do this, we can't do that. If we do this and that, here are the pros and here are the cons. It's not about right and wrong. It's about trade-offs. You can't do everything with the resources that you have, but with the resources you do have, what will you do with them? That would distinguish you from the next business. I might be a business coach, but there is another business coach who may focus on something that's totally different. Those trade-offs give us our unique ability to provide the products and services unique to our customers.
Question: how much should people really worry about the balance of trade?
Somewhat less than you worry about being struck by lightning.
Yes. In a recent interview of U.S. News and World Report, Secretary of the Treasury Blumenthal blamed our current rising inflation in a large part on our foreign trade and unions. He did, however, say that the government was little to blame. Would you like to comment on that?
Yes. Unfortunately, it is one of the defects of our political system that we always put a Secretary of the Treasury and other high government officials into a position in which, when they make public statements, they are almost driven. Well, what's the word I want to use? I want to use a polite word, equivocate. Secretary Blumenthal knows as well as you and I do that inflation does not come from trade unions. That doesn't mean that trade unions aren't grasping. Of course they are. But they don't produce inflation for one simple reason. They do not own a printing press on which you can turn out green pieces of paper. The only such printing press is in Washington. I say printing press, of course, in the modern age we do it in a more sophisticated way. We use bookkeepers and accountants and computers. But it comes down to the same thing. Inflation is made in Washington because only Washington can create money. And any other attribution to other groups of inflation is wrong. Consumers don't produce it. Producers don't produce it. Trade unions don't produce it. Foreign sheiks don't produce it. Oil imports don't produce it. What produces it is too much government spending and too much government creation of money and nothing else. Yes, sir. Before you clap, let me point out that the reason why we have too much spending and too much printing of money is because you people want it. You and I. We're citizens. We run this country. If Congress has been voting higher and higher spending, why? Because it has been politically profitable for them to do it.
Let's talk about Trump's tariffs as an example. The left of the political spectrum here in the United States argues that tariffs raises prices for consumers, making goods more expensive.
Yeah, so look, if the United States does impose a 25% tariff when Trump takes office, it is going to make things more expensive. You think about the things that we get from Canada: steel, aluminum, lumber. A lot of the cars that we buy are assembled in Canada or Mexico before they make their way to the United States. I think what's really interesting here is when President-elect Trump had first posted all of this on social media, we saw Prime Minister Trudeau come to the table. He flew down to Mar-a-Lago. They had a discussion, and you and I were talking about this, Reed. We were saying, oh, wow, this does look potentially like this negotiating tactic of threatening tariffs could be working. But now you're starting to see that tit for tat. If you do this, we're going to slap retaliatory tariffs. And we saw this under Trump's first administration. The Canadians used very targeted political tariffs. They went after certain industries that were very important to politicians within President-elect Trump's sphere of influence. And they did that in order to try and put pressure on him of, hey, let's not do this. So I think we're starting to see the beginning of that tit for tat trade war. If it does happen, it's not very good for our wallets, Reed.
Now, the right, on terms of the right political aisle, sees tariffs as leverage for better trade arguments.
Another point, if I may, because I get asked this so many times, and I think there's so much confusion, even by economists like Larry Summers, who's a pretty smart guy. What he doesn't understand is that, because I work with Trump on this stuff, yes, we are going to probably raise some of those tariffs on things that are imported into the United States, but we're also going to lower the taxes on things that are made here. And that's going to lower their prices. So overall, I see no impact on inflation whatsoever.
Just straighten something out for me. When he imposed tariffs in his first administration, did that literally bring in hundreds of billions of dollars to the United States Treasury?
No, I don't know the exact number, not hundreds of billions, but tens of billions of dollars came in. I mean, tariffs are a tax. They do bring in money to the federal government. But what I'm hoping we do in the second term is look, I don't think the American people want an overall tax increase on things. So again, you're going to lower taxes on things that are made in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Michigan, and you're going to raise the tax on things that are coming in from China or Japan. And for a lot of Americans, by the way, I think would support that idea because why not favor things that are made in America?
Now, this comes straight out of, Trump's mouth during his interviews, doing conversations about why he wants to impose taxes or tariffs on, goods coming from Canada and Mexico that ultimately are coming from China.
Many people would say the biggest problem with your tariffs is actually geopolitics. You, in your first term, you got some credit for effectively saying that there was a Cold War against China. That's what America was in. You look at the last Cold War against the Soviet Union, America won it in part because it rallied allies to it. You're talking about slamming allies with 30%, 20% tariffs. Isn't this time you're going to end up trying to rally the West and you're dividing it instead? Isn't that the real problem with tariffs, even beyond all the problems due to the economy, where you keep on bringing up these individual examples, but the overall effect is going to be dramatic?
No, the overall effect will be...
Answer first about foreign policy.
Yeah, I'll do that.
How does it help you take on China, turning all your allies against you?
Tremendously, because China thinks we're a stupid country. A very stupid country. They can't believe that somebody finally got wise to them. Not one president, Bush, Obama, Barack Hussein Obama, have you heard of him? Not one president, think of it, not one president charged China anything. They said, oh, they are a third world nation, they are developing. Well, we're a developing nation too. Take a look at Detroit. Take a look at our cities. We're a developing nation. We have to develop more than they do. We're way behind them. You take a look at what's happened to our cities. So what I'm saying is
my question was about your allies, not about China. You are going to annoy the people you need to rally behind you.
But our allies have taken advantage of us more so than our enemies. Our allies are the European Union. We have a trade deficit of $300 billion with the European Union. Our allies are Japan. You know, Abe was a very good friend of mine. He was a great guy, great. And I said to him in Japan, he was assassinated. And he was a great man. He really was. I didn't see too many like him. And he got very sick and he had to take off. And then he was actually making a comeback. He was going to make a comeback and he would have won easily. But he was a great gentleman, handsome, wonderful man, respected by everybody. And I went to him and I said, Shinzo, we have to talk. What? Trade. And he goes, I'll never forget it. I know. I said, what do you know? I knew you'd come to me. Why do you say that? Because I can't believe, I wouldn't tell the story if he was alive, actually. I said, I can't believe how many years it's been that nobody even negotiated with us in America. I said, Shinzo, you have to pay for your cars. You're sending millions of cars. You don't accept a car from us. You don't have one car that you accept, and yet we're selling 3 million, 4 million of your cars. I said, Shinzo, on agriculture, you won't even accept our agriculture. And I renegotiated the whole trade deal from a little disadvantage because I was stuck with a bad deal. I mean, we have trade deals that were so bad that I said, who are the people that are doing it? They're either very stupid or they're getting paid off, okay? It's one or the other. It's very simple. We have the worst trade deals all over the world. South Korea, I love South Korea. They're wonderful people, extremely ambitious. They have a money machine. We protect them from North Korea and other people. North Korea is very nuclear. I got along with him very well, Kim Jong-un. Yes. But wait, they don't pay us anything. And I said, this is crazy. If I didn't put tariffs on, you know, the motor company, the car companies, they make most of their money on small trucks. I put tariffs on China, but I put 27.5%. Otherwise, we'd be flooded with Chinese cars, and all of our factories would close. We'd have no jobs at all in the auto industry. That goes for electric, by the way, which is a killer, which I've explained, and I don't think I have to bore anybody by talking about it. But I put tariffs on South Korea because they were sending in trucks, and I put tariffs on, fairly substantial tariffs. Do you know that our car companies make almost all of their money with the small trucks, SUVs and small trucks? If I took those tariffs on, you would be inundated. Every car company would be out of business. And I got calls from Ford. I got calls from everybody saying, sir, I can't believe you're doing this for us. You saved our company. They make all their money with this. They make most of their money with the small truck and, you know, the SUVs.
Many consumers ended up with more expensive cars. But let me just come at you on foreign policy.
You wouldn't have a car company.
In an effort to avoid U.S. tariffs, Chinese companies are moving their raw materials and operations to Mexico. Jordan Dewart is the president of cross-border logistics company Redwood Mexico. In addition to this 100,000 square foot warehouse in El Paso, The company also has about 200 employees in Mexico.
How has the landscape changed since the start of the Trump trade war when it comes to Chinese manufacturing?
Well, it's no secret there was a lot of pressure on Chinese companies after those trade wars. And I think we saw immediately an opportunity for Chinese companies to move to Mexico to kind of catch this nearshoring wave.
Ocean container data tracked by freight analytics firms in NADA backs that up.
We have seen 18 months in a row now with ever increasing, basically all-time high monthly imports from China to Mexico.
Container traffic from China to Mexico has surged in recent years.
Now, a little background from a political standpoint, during the Clinton years in the 90s, there was this thing called globalization. This was an effort of the United States to create a dependency on one another or each country so that not one country could have all of the power and that we can be dependent on one another's goods and their services.
We must recognize first that globalization has made us all more free and more interdependent. Those of us who are more fortunate must be more responsible and work harder to be good neighbors and good partners. The United States has a special responsibility in that regard because we have been so fortunate in our history and so very fortunate over the last decade. As I said a couple of days ago in my State of the Union address, for me there is only one direction forward on trade, and that is to go on with what we're doing, recognizing that this is a new and very different world, but the idea that we would be better off with less trade, with less rule-based trade, by turning away from our attempts to find international ways within which we can work together, I think is dead wrong. Now, having said that, what does that mean? Well, for me, it meant that when first our neighbors in Mexico and then our friends in Asia were in turmoil and crisis, the United States had to keep our markets open, even though it led to record trade deficits. For me, it means it's very important to get China into the World Trade Organization to ensure that China's markets are open to us, even as we have our markets open to China.
For globalization to be, expanded and for consumers to have better prices, steel manufacturers and producers of steel has slowly decreased in the United States and has slowly increased in other countries like China, which has disrupted the market of steel providers in the United States.
Of the top 15 steel industry companies in the world, how many companies of ours are in the top 15? What would you say? 5? Would you say 10? 8? Where do you think we're ranked? You think one of our steel companies is in the top 3? We're probably number 1, right? Take a look at this list. Here's as of 2022, top 15 crude steel producers worldwide. Number 1, guess where it's at? China. Number 2, Luxembourg. Number 3, China. Number 4, Japan. Number 5, China. Number 6, China. Number 7, South Korea. Number 8, China. Number 9, China. Number 10, India. Number 11, China. Number 12, China. Number 13, China. Number 14, Japan. Number 15, India. And guess who's number 16? US. We used to rule the world in steel. What happened? Oh, we gave the business out because it was cheaper. And we went from 700,000 hard-working Americans supporting their wives and their kids to 140,000. Go explain that to 560,000 people that were working in that industry, and now those jobs are in China.
So globalization created a dependency on other countries to keep, wars down, supposedly. But as a result, markets in the United States for steel, for example, have diminished. Now, both the left and the right are correct, but they're incomplete. Tariffs do increase costs, but they also provide bargaining power to secure trade terms that could benefit the nation in the long term. Trade-offs lies in accepting short-term pain for potential long-term gain. Now, in the short term, maybe prices do rise, but in the long term, we'll be able to build stronger markets for consumer goods and services here in the United States. Again, these are trade-offs. I would like to take time out in this video to talk about a great business book called Who Said So by Michael E. Parker. In this book, it challenges traditional businesses and their norms and encourages leaders to rethink their assumptions to create revolutionary businesses. Michael Partner is a successful business leader and entrepreneur, and he provides a framework for questioning the status quo and implementing practices that foster innovation, efficiency, and customer satisfaction. Some of the key, takeaways and insights that I got from the book is the power of questions. This book, it emphasizes that asking the right questions is critical for business success. Instead of just accepting conventional wisdoms, leaders should constantly and consistently ask, who said so? And doing this will uncover whether traditional practices truly align with their business goals and objectives. Now, another part that I really like about this book is having a customer-centric thinking. Michael Parker and his, teachings and his programs is really geared to giving the customer what they want, having the customer at the top. In the book, it has the structure of, the CEO, senior leadership, the workers, but in the structure, the customer is at the top, because at the end of the day, if you don't have customers, you don't have a business. So you want to give the customers exactly what they want. And so, he advocates for businesses to prioritize the needs of the customers above all else. This involves, understanding customer pain points and innovating solutions that provide value and satisfaction. So that is Who Said So by Michael E. Parker. It's on Amazon. You should go get your copy today. Take care. Now, Adam Smith is one of the greatest economists that ever walked the face of the earth, and he wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations. Now, in this book, he talks about tariffs, not in a good way, not in a bad way, but just talks about the trade-offs of both. Now, in the book, he has a quote where he talks about the industry of a country will never be better directed than when it is directed by the skill, dexterity, and the judgment of those who exercise it. Now, Smith believes that when markets are free from tariffs and trade barriers, goods are produced by the most efficient producers, regardless of location. Whether it's in the United States or out of the United States, whoever produces at the lowest cost, the most efficiently, that's the best for the customer. This process benefits consumers through lower prices and improved quality. The United States is really good at building planes, having services for economic, instruments, as well as, software and technology. We do a really good job here of the United States exporting those things. Japan is really good at building cars, reliable cars. Other countries could be really good at, spices. India, throughout the years, is really known for its spices. Now, when you talk about trade wars, this was, in the last century, was one of the causes of the Opium Wars in China and British. But China was a country at the time where they didn't, really go in the outside world. They exported a lot of things, but they didn't take in the culture of values or products and services from other countries. And this created a trade deficit with Great Britain, who was the superpower at the time. And so at the time, Great Britain, they invaded, China, went to war with China, to create a, bargain agreement that China would buy more products and services from Britain. Now, this happened twice, which created a lot of embarrassment for China, and which is maybe an impetus of why China in this century is doing all they can to become an economic power, be better in technology, as well as a superpower in this day and age. So that's a little backstory in history of some trade wars and the Opium Wars with China and Great Britain. Today, the United States is a great power, but we don't have a balance in, terms of our trade. We are at a trade deficit, which means that we import more than we export. I think it's no, surprise that the United States is a really big consumer of things. When I was growing up, the toys that I had, the game systems, seems like everything was made in China. Now, slowly.
I have the breakdown here. Out of all the countries that we have surplus in, not deficit. You know how many countries it is? Argentina, 5 billion, barely any. Chile, 6 billion. Brazil, couple. Colombia, couple. Nigeria, 1. Egypt, 3. And a few others. Mexico, negative surplus. Canada, Ireland, China, India, Taiwan, Japan. I'm calling every one of these guys and I'm going on the road to say, we are renegotiating these deals that everybody else did. You're not going to like it. If you don't want to renegotiate these deals and you buy stuff from us, American, you in America building this stuff, there's a tariff being put on you. This can either be a very easy conversation with you. It can be a very tough conversation with you. What would you like to do? I would like to come to your place. We have a great conversation. I'd like to try your food. I'd like to learn more about your culture. I'd like to walk away saying you're a country that we're going to do business with for decades to come. But if you think for a second we're going to continue this, things are going to be very rough for you and your economy the next 4 years. How would you like to approach this? No problem. We're on our way. My team will call your team. Let's book lunch and dinner. I need a full day with all your decision makers. We'll see you guys soon. That's tariffs. That's trade surplus. That's trade deficit.
But surely you're starting to see more products made in other countries that have, less stricter labor laws. Maybe, Taiwan, Malaysia, things of that nature, where labor costs to build and assemble things are a lot cheaper. But some may say that there's some integrity issues because there are sweatshops, there are child labor issues. And so those are the trade-offs. There's different laws in different other countries. That's not for me to decide, but it's a question to ask. And as a business leader, this may be a way to distinguish yourself from other business leaders to say, hey, I make everything in the United States where the laws protect people, it protects children. Well, your competitor may say, hey, I don't, that really doesn't bother me. I'm going to provide a product or service at the cheapest cost because my customers are very cost adverse. And so this is trade-offs. When you have a lot of competition in the marketplace, if there are, for example, several different energy companies that provide energy for your house, do you think your bill will be lower or higher today? Not many people know that in most municipalities around this country that these energy companies have a monopoly in their area. You only have one company that can provide you electricity, one company that can provide you gas and water, one company that can provide, waste management services. These are monopolies. And just imagine if it was privatized, in which you had multiple companies that offered energy for the house. Do you think it would be cheaper? Why? It would be cheaper because it's competition. Everybody will be competing on the best services. This is what you see in a lot of cell phone industries where you have, Verizon, T-Mobile. There used to be Sprint, and Virgin Mobile, and these all competed for your business. As a result, prices are regulated on the free market. If one person said, hey, you know what, I'm going to sell my phone for $1 million so I can make all the money. Well, as a result, people won't buy that service or that phone. They will go to the phone that best resonates with them, whether it's the story, the branding, the marketing, the price, whatever the case might be, whatever the offering you give to your customers, that is what customers will resonate towards. And if your product or service or the market itself is very price adverse, meaning that the customers react to very subtle changes in the pricing of the product or service, you might caution how you change prices. You might want to do your due diligence of the value that you give in the marketplace so that you can price your products or services the right way. Now, political polarization often oversimplifies these trade-offs. The left political side sees only higher costs for its consumers. The right sees only negotiating power. But successful decision making, whether in politics, economics, or business, requires acknowledging both sides of the trade-offs and assessing the risks and rewards of each choice. And your business, what business challenges are you having? Are your people or your leaders in your organization looking at right and wrong? How could you change that frame of thinking from right and wrong to what are the trade-offs? What are the pros and cons? What are the first and second order of effects? What are the things that will happen immediately in the short term? What are the unforeseen possibilities long term? These are great questions to ask your leaders in your organization to come up with the best decision and direction to go in to meet your business goals and objectives. Trade-offs define economics, politics, and business strategy. The next time you face a tough decision, ask yourself, what am I willing to trade for what I want? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you navigate trade-offs in your life? And most importantly, in your business? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Again, my name is Christopher Coleman with the Business Intelligence Group. I solve business problems. Visit me on my website at thebizintelgroup.com. You can visit me on social media on X and on Instagram at @CColemanBiz. That's B-I-Z. Peace. I'll catch you in the next one.